you are doing everything right, and it feels completely wrong. You have the job or the degree or the routine that makes sense on paper. You show up, you perform, you tick the boxes everyone said mattered. But somewhere underneath all of it, there is a quiet voice that keeps asking the same question. Is this actually my life? Or did I just end up here? And the worst part is, you cannot even explain why it feels wrong. Nothing is broken, nothing is a disaster. It just feels like you are wearing someone else's clothes, and you have been wearing them so long you forgot what yours looked like. This video is for people who feel like they are living the wrong life. And the first thing you need to understand is that this feeling is not ingratitude. It is not laziness. It is not a phase. It is a signal. A specific psychological signal that the life you are living and the person you actually are have drifted apart. Psychologists call this identity dissonance. It is the gap between your authentic self and the identity you are currently performing. And the wider that gap gets, the louder the signal becomes. It starts quietly, a Sunday evening feeling that something is off, without being able to name what. A moment in the middle of a normal day where you look around at your own life and feel like a stranger in it. A conversation where someone asks what you are passionate about, and you realize you genuinely do not know anymore. These are not dramatic crisis moments. They are small, persistent signals that the life you built and the person inside it are not the same size. Most people ignore these signals for a long time because the life looks fine from the outside, because changing it seems impossible, because you have already invested so much in the direction you are going, and so you keep going, not because it feels right, because stopping feels harder. Psychologists have a name for this too. It is called the sunk cost trap. The tendency to continue a path not because it is working, but because you have already spent time, energy, or identity on it. The degree you finished, even though you knew halfway through it, was not right for you. The career path you stayed on because leaving felt like admitting the last 5 years were wasted. The version of yourself you kept performing because too many people had already seen it and you did not know how to explain the change. The sunk cost trap is one of the most powerful forces keeping people in lives that do not fit them, because the human brain is wired to protect past investment. Admitting a path is wrong feels like admitting failure. So the brain reframes the path as still possibly right. Maybe it gets better. Maybe you just need to adjust. Maybe this feeling is normal and everyone has it. But here is the painful distinction that matters. Everyone has bad days. Not everyone has this feeling. Bad days feel like temporary turbulence inside a life that fundamentally fits you. This feeling is different. It is a structural problem, not a temporary weather event. It is the feeling that the house itself is wrong, not just the furniture. There is also a specific type of life path that produces this feeling more than others. Psychologists call it identity foreclosure. It happens when you commit to a life direction before you have had enough time or experience to know who you actually are. You followed the path your parents expected, or the path that seemed most practical, or the path that the version of you at 17 chose, without knowing what the version of you at 25 would actually need. Identity foreclosure is not a moral failure. It is a timing problem. You made permanent decisions with temporary information, and the life you built from those decisions fits the person you were trying to become then, not the person you have actually become. Here is what makes this so specific and so hard to talk about. You cannot point to anything concretely wrong. Nothing is broken, nothing is a disaster. You have things people would be grateful for, and you are grateful, and it still feels like the wrong life. That combination, gratitude and wrongness existing simultaneously, is one of the most confusing and isolating experiences a person can have. Because the people around you see the things you have and cannot understand what there is to feel off about, and you cannot explain it without sounding ungrateful. So you stop trying to explain it, and you carry it alone. This is called the golden cage feeling in existential psychology. The life that looks perfect from the outside, but feels like a constraint from the inside. And the longer you stay in it without acknowledging it, the more it costs you. Not in dramatic ways, in quiet ways. The creativity that slowly stops showing up. The curiosity that gradually goes flat. The version of you that used to have opinions and passions and directions, and now mostly just has a schedule. The hobbies you quietly abandon, the dreams you stopped mentioning because it felt pointless to keep bringing them up. The moments where someone asks what you enjoy, and you list things you used to enjoy because you cannot remember what you enjoy now. The self does not disappear overnight. It fades, one small compromise at a time. So what do you actually do with this feeling? Because recognizing it is not the same as knowing what to do with it. The first thing is separating the feeling from the action. Feeling like you are in the wrong life does not mean you need to burn everything down tomorrow. Most people either ignore the feeling completely or catastrophize it into believing they need to immediately quit their job and move to another country. Neither response is useful. The feeling is information. It deserves examination, not suppression, and not panic. The second thing is asking a more specific question than, is this the right life? That question is too large to answer usefully. The more useful question is, which specific parts of this life feel wrong and which parts feel right? Because almost nobody is living an entirely wrong life. Most people are living a mostly misaligned life with pockets of rightness inside it. Finding those pockets and expanding them is more achievable than rebuilding everything from scratch. The third thing is the hardest. It is allowing yourself to want what you actually want, not what you were supposed to want. Somewhere along the way, most people learn to edit their desires before they even become conscious thoughts. That would be impractical. That would disappoint someone. That is not who I am supposed to be. The editing becomes so automatic that you stop being able to access what you actually want underneath the should. Giving yourself permission to want differently is not selfishness. It is the beginning of building a life that actually fits. And the life that fits is not a perfect life. It is not a life without difficulty or boredom or compromise. It is a life where the difficulty and boredom and compromise are in service of something that is actually yours, where the hard parts feel worth it because the direction is right, where you do not spend Sunday evenings dreading Monday because the life waiting for you on Monday is one you actually chose. That is not a fantasy. That is just alignment. The same life with a different direction can feel completely different from the inside, and the path toward that alignment does not require burning everything down. It just requires honesty about where you actually are. You are not ungrateful. You are not dramatic. You are not asking for too much. You are just someone who has been living inside a life built for a version of yourself that you have quietly outgrown. And outgrowing something is not a failure. It is proof that you grew. The question is not whether you are allowed to want a different life. You are. The question is whether you are willing to take the feeling seriously enough to finally find out what that life looks like.